today's episode is just the Amy show. Literally, it's two Amy's together. So I'm Amy Prokopis. I have written the young adult novel, the science fiction novel, The Arena, and my next book is young adult urban fantasy. It comes out on the 31st of October. It is called Guardians of the Sixth Gate. And this is Wednesdays with Writers. So today I have the lovely Amy Lee, who you might see all over TikTok. She's hilarious. She's also, her husband also is an author. So we've got like an author duo here. So I cannot wait to talk about what that dynamic looks like. Mm-hmm. But let's hear more about yourself and some of your books first.
Yeah, so I'm Amy Lee. I'm a wife to another author. We're high school sweethearts. We've been together for almost 15 years now, I think. Married for 5. And, we have a home in the suburbs of Buffalo, New York. We have 2 golden retrievers. We have a kitty cat. We're living the dream, except he still works for somebody else where I work for myself. So we're working into the official dream. But I write new adult fantasy romance and he writes dark fantasy. So we have like a fantasy dichotomy going on, I guess. But I love nature, especially. I love going on nature walks and easy hikes. I'm not I can't do mountains and stuff. Like bird watching, bird feeding, gardening, all that stuff. I'm totally into it. And I try to put that love of nature into my books too. So they very much take place out in nature, and nature has like a magical aspect to it in my books. But I've got one book under my belt. It's my debut novel. It's right here, Fate and Resolve. The Centaur Tribe, book 1.
Yes.
And it's a new adult fantasy romance. Ta-da. And it's just very simply, a young woman is betrothed to a blacksmith that has a really bad reputation. She lives in this town that's just completely surrounded by the forest. It doesn't trade. It's completely secluded, and it's very patriarchal and religious. And what they have decided her life should be, she says, I don't want that life. So she flees into the forest, says, you know what? I don't know where anything is in this town, in this continent, but I have to, if I go far enough, I have to find another human town and make my own life. But before she can reach another human town, she's very quickly captured by a centaur, and he promises her a better life. He says, I'll take care of you. I know that blacksmith. He's no good. I will protect you from him. Just trust me. And she's like, okay. So she has to work on her trust issues, and she never believed in magic because it's all religious and that's not good and whatever. And just find out that she has the capability to create her own life, and it doesn't have to be ruled by somebody else. And depending on the choices she makes, maybe she can find her happiness. So it's a romance, and it's with centaurs, and that's very different. I've never seen something like that before.
Me neither. I was super intrigued by that.
Yeah, it's very much a self-discovery book for her. So
I never get tired of the self-discovery plotline. I never do. I love that. And nature, I also bring nature into my books also. I even built sort of my author branding around like evergreen trees and stuff. So I definitely connect with that. I always find so much inspiration from being outside. I also like to hike and be outside. I've never been bird watching. Don't know that I'd know much about that, but
that came to me really recently as I happened to go into a bird feeding specialty store for my mom's birthday, and they were hiring, and I'm like, I could get into birds. And I really got into it when they hired me and trained me. I'm like, I love birds now. Like,
oh my God.
I liked watching them before, but I was just like, it's a cardinal and that's a brown one. And like learning about it just learning about anything gets you more into it, no matter what it is. And so learning about birds and bird watching and being able to identify them and their songs and everything just totally captured me. And now I'm really into birds.
Oh man, I really like owls, but past owls, I don't know much about birds.
Yeah, I love owls. They're so cool.
They're just like, there's so much mythology behind owls, there's like the wisdom side of it. And then if you go like more towards like indigenous peoples, there's like this whole idea of it being like an omen. And they're just kind of weird. Owls are just weird in general.
They're really weird.
I identify with that part. Oh my gosh. So what are you working on right now? Anything new? The second book?
I'm working on book 2. Yeah. Okay. I'm about halfway through writing book 2. I wanted to be further along, but life happened, you know. Between wedding and a funeral and just, oh my God, it was like the last 6 weeks were never ending in my life. Oh my God. So I'm a little bit behind, but I have a schedule. I have a plan. I really want to get this book out in September. So that's the hope. Yeah. It's like really fast, but I'm working on it, and I know
you could do it.
Yeah.
I believe
since I gave Fate and Resolve to beta readers, they've been like, where's book 2? I need it. I'm like, oh, well, hold on. Hold on. So I've had people asking since May when Fate and Resolve came out, where's book 2? And I'm like, I don't know. September, I guess. I don't know. And I originally wanted it to be August, but that's what I'm working on. And it still follows Leah. It's a continuation of her in the tribe of centaurs and falling in love with maybe a different centaur. And I can't say too much about the plot, but we are going to see more of the world. That's so cool. And she's going to learn just so much about magic, because she just never believed that there was magic. People are telling her like, maybe you have magic inside of you, and she's like, no, I'm just a little girl from this little town of Starling, and just no. Oh my God. But she's going to try to learn magic, see if she has it inside of her. She's going to work with her dagger and a bow and arrow and just build up who she is.
Man, how far do you see the series going?
I'm sorry.
Do you have the series kind of like mapped out? How far does this go?
It's expected to be a trilogy. Okay. Originally, way back when, because I came up with this Centaur tribe idea like 8 years ago. And I've kind of just been sitting on it. I started it, I restarted it, I threw it away, I started it again. And I just I didn't have the stuff to do it yet. Yeah. And I just didn't have like a solid idea. And then I feel like I had to go through some stuff in my life to be able to write this story and to like make Leah seem very real and relatable. So eventually I went through all that stuff and I was able to write it this year. And originally, way back when, it was going to be like a series of 6 with a different romantic couple in each book. So it would follow through the tribe with different couples. So Leah was going to be the first one. And I had, the idea of her whole plot line, which I just can't give away because now it's the whole trilogy, but it was all going to be book 1. And then I'm writing book 1 and I'm writing book 1. I'm like, I'm a third of the way through Leah's story and I have 120,000 words. Uh-oh. So I reframed the entire series and I said, okay, this is just Leah's series. We can do spin-offs if people want spin-offs. I really want to follow her sister more. And another one of the girls, Sophie, is just hilarious. And so it's planned to be a trilogy as of right now. If I tend to be long-winded, I think, when I write, because I just want so much detail. So if it goes to 4 books, oh well. 5, oh well.
That's how I am too. As I've written Guardians of the Sixth Gate, it's also a book I've kind of been sitting on like that. Not as long, but it's been in the works for a while. And when I sat down to write it, it came really fast. And the more I like to think that I start character first with all of my books. I like to flesh out exactly who these people are. And I always know so much more than what I put in the books. And there are a couple characters in there that I love way too much. And so I feel like I'm going to end up with some spinoffs too. Just like you feel like you want to explore the sister more. I have a couple that I'm like, I have a whole tangent here of stuff, of fun stuff. I've got to get out there. So we'll have
you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg from one character's story of this other character. And you're like, but this character's so good. She needs her own thing too. Or he. Oh, I
I
feel
feel
that.
like spin-offs, especially in the indie community, I feel like those kinds of books that either like cross over into each other or riff on each other into their own branches, I feel like that has gotten to be more common, especially in the indie community. But I feel like that's
Yeah.
something that a lot of readers are enjoying and just eating up, just devouring.
Yeah,
I love that. I love reading books like that too.
I do too. Cause it's just, you want more of that universe and those people and
Yes.
just anything like that. Totally. So I have a couple ideas, but I'm like, oh my God, but then I have the new series idea and everybody's like, start
Yeah.
that series. I'm like, no, one thing at a time. I can only write one thing at a time or else I just get totally overwhelmed.
Yeah, I have
So,
to work on at least one series at a time. If I start to think too much about the next one, it's like blinders. The blinders are off and I'm led astray.
yes, me too.
I've got to do one at a time.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Gosh. So do you and your husband, do you write differently? Do you have different writing styles or like
Oh,
processes?
definitely. He is a total pantser. He's
Oh,
like, I
yeah.
know kind of where they're going to go, but I'm just going to write and see what happens. And maybe they go there, maybe they don't. He like lets the
Oh
story
my
come to
God.
him.
I'm a little
And
bit that way.
he has a little bit of planning like at the bottom of his Word doc,
Oh my
but
God.
then he's like, nah, I don't like that anymore. Whereas I'm like, I got the spreadsheet out. I have
Huh?
where each character is going to be, the struggles that they go through, the exact plot line, the timeline, everything. And I mostly stick to that.
Yeah.
But as I write, sometimes the characters like reveal stuff to you and you're like, well, I had no idea that was connected that way. Thank you so much for telling me, invisible person in my
Yes.
head. So I mostly stick to my plan
Mhm.
unless something awesome comes through as I'm writing.
I've gotten
And
more
he
and
just
more that
makes it up.
way. Yeah. I
But
used
there's
to
like,
be a pantser, but I've kind of veered more that direction too. It just makes things easier on the back end, I've found. As I've gone on my own author journey, it makes some
yeah,
of those like editing things a little easier.
I can completely see that because in my editing, I was like cross-referencing multiple spreadsheets, like, well,
Yeah.
hold on, did I remember this? And what about this? And then I'm like, nobody is going to know any of that except for me. And I'm making so
Right?
much work for myself. But it's like, it's interesting because there's no right or wrong way to do it. And the
No.
stories come out just as good no matter how you approach it. So it's always interesting to see like how people do it.
That's why I asked. It's one of my favorite questions to ask authors. And I would never have thought to like compare and contrast too much until I started this series. And every author I've had or aspiring author, everyone I've had on this series does it just a little bit different or
Isn't
uses
that funny?
a different person's method or
Yeah.
oh, I use this method, but this is what I do with it. And I think it's so cool because you're totally right. The book always ends up the same anyway. It all ends up fine and dandy in the end. It's just what works for you. And that's
Right.
art. That's art. I
It is.
love that.
It is. It's totally art. And I think people, when they think of art, they think traditional paintings and
Yeah.
pottery and fine arts like that. And I've had some people say like writing isn't art, it's academic. I'm like, no, I mean, it depends on what you're reading, I guess. But
Yeah.
if you're going into genre fiction, that is not academic.
Oh
You have
my
to
God.
follow a couple
Yes.
rules. It would be nice if you had good grammar and spelling, but ultimately, like, especially dialogue, it's whatever you want it to be.
There. I love it. It's so fun. So do you beta read for your husband at all? Do you two like swap your stuff? Are you your first readers?
Totally. Yep. I've beta read for him. He's got a couple books under his belt.
Mhm.
And he published his first one in 2019. I don't know, a couple of years ago. And so he's like, beta read this for me. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know if I'm any good at grammar. I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking for. He's like, read it and just tell me your thoughts. And I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
So I did that and I was like, I don't know. It was good. I liked this part. This character I hate, blah, blah, blah. And I like didn't know what I was supposed to be looking for.
Mhm.
Because a couple of years ago, I totally fell off of reading, totally fell off of writing for a good chunk of time. Like it just, I had depression and anxiety and all that stuff. And this part of my life just had to take a back seat for years. So when I finally got back into it, and he's like, beta read this for me. I'm like, I'm not qualified. I don't know. But then I got back into it and I got healthier, and now we're very good at being able to identify, like, okay, the structure of this storyline is good. This character needs more development here. The tension is great. And we can like pick apart like that while still looking at it analytically and emotionally, I guess. Yeah. But we totally do that for each other. That was a totally long-winded answer. We absolutely beta read for each other. We'll do it once, and then he'll go through edits, or I'll go through edits. We'll do a final read through and then send it off to other people, basically. Actually, he doesn't send it out to other people. He only uses me. I'm like, you really need to get a team, because you can't rely on me. I'm going to feel bad if you get bad reviews.
It's fun to connect with other people too, though, and like get your book out there a little bit early, just see what builds from there. That's kind of fun. That's something with this book that I'm doing a bit differently, because I also didn't do a lot of that the first time I published, and I really wish I had, because I've gotten really good feedback from my first book. I just don't have a lot of it, and so it's just not out there as far as I could have gone with it, I think. So that's something I definitely am doing different. How did your journey towards like publishing a book begin? Has that always been something like you've considered doing?
Oh yeah, my whole life I've loved writing. And I started with little stories when I was a little teenager, preteen, and just being like, this little girl's going through this, and blah, blah, blah. And then she comes across a unicorn or something. And I was like, why am I writing this? This is dumb. I don't even know. Then I moved into fan fiction.
Oh, yep.
And I would absolutely die if I ever found my own fan fiction again, because I know that was the cheesiest of cheese that exists out there. And then, I tried to write a couple things. I never was able to finish anything. And I think that stems from like a fear of failure, because if you finish it, you got to do something. I mean, you don't have to, but I would want to do something with it.
Yeah.
And when you put yourself out there like that, it's like, oh God, now they're going to tell me what they think. So when I was working on Fate and Resolve, I was like, I'm not going to use beta readers. I'm just going to throw it out into the world and see what happens, because I'm too afraid of the feedback. I just want to get it out there.
Yes.
And then I had some of my writer friends were like, no, you have to do beta readers. You really have to. And I'm like, oh, fine. So I went on TikTok, I called for beta readers, and I'm thinking like some people will respond and be like, yeah, that was fine. And other people will be like, that was trash, and I'll cry, and who knows. But I ended up, every single person who responded to me read the book, gave feedback, and I'm still in contact with them. And I ended up making like this little team of people who support me, who I support, but we ended up becoming really good friends. Like we have a little friendship group now that they're my tribe. And I'm like, I never, ever expected this to happen. I didn't expect to build relationships. I thought you would take my book and either ghost me, or take my book, tell me it was terrible, or tell it was just okay. But now I have this amazing network of people, and it keeps growing, because then I introduced ARC readers, and then I found readers who found my book on TikTok, and they're like, I want to be part of this. Please let me beta for the next one. And I'm just like, oh my God, this was the best choice I ever made, even though it was the hardest thing to do, was to like put the finished product out there and be like, here's my baby, please be gentle. I'm so happy that I went that route, that I'm never not going to do that again, because I've built up, like from a selfish point of view, it's like, now I have people that are going to be like, go buy this book. Wow, look, a little street team to promote for me. But really, it's people who I trust, who are going to tell me if there's something that needs to be changed. And we're just friends. I never expected it to go that way. And I'm just so happy. That was a tangent. I always knew I wanted to be a writer. And when I learned about indie publishing, I immediately knew like, that's for me. I don't want anything to do with traditional. It sounds like a nightmare. I'm really kind of bossy and I like to have control over everything. So I'm like, yes, indie. I like the business side of things too. I want to be involved in every aspect. So indie
It
is
is
just
fun.
perfect for me.
Oh my
Perfect.
gosh. I didn't think I would like any of the business side. Numbers scare me. I was an atrocious math student. I was so
Oh no.
bad. Oh my gosh. And so when it came to like that whole side of it, marketing, putting yourself out there, the introvert in me and the like, oh, hating the numbers, I was like, I don't want any of that. I'm going traditional. And then when the
Yes.
pandemic hit and everyone was like posting all their art projects online, like, here's the banana bread I made. And I realized then I was like, I've been saying forever that I'm going to publish this book and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And now I've had like a career for a few years. I have a child now. I'm not getting any younger. Things are not going to get any easier. So why not just give it a shot? And I am just like you, and I love every aspect of it. I cannot believe I do, but I do.
Yeah.
There's something about seeing all sides of it
Mhm.
that's just like, it's just amazing to see all the work that really goes into it to make it
Yeah.
all happen. And I didn't know, I've learned so much more about the publishing industry from this side of it than I ever did when I did all of my research into the traditional side of it. I've learned so much more about what
Oh
it
yeah.
really takes to put a
Yeah.
book out there. It's a whole lot different than just, writing a good book and putting it online or hoping somebody else thinks it's good and publishes it for you. There's so much
That's
to it.
teenager Amy was always like that. Like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
make this book, put it online, and people will be swarming to me. And I'm like, girl,
Mhm.
that is not how that works.
Oh no, even really good books don't sell well.
Yeah.
They're out there. There's like such a method to the madness, and learning that method has been more fun than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Still a
I'm
struggle, but you
I
grow
like
with each one.
I like the number side of it. I was always into math and stuff. So I have spreadsheets galore to follow like every little thing in my business. But like you said, being an introvert and putting yourself out there, it's like terrifying.
Yeah.
And I feel that the things that I've done in the past 10 years has really prepared me to like hit the ground running with being an author and putting yourself out there. Like, I worked retail for years and years, and it's just like, I don't want to talk to anybody, but you have to smile and pretend like you're so happy, and you put on this thing and you fake it till you make it. And I'm like, I'm just going to do that with everything. But then it turns out, like, when you're not slinging something that you don't care about, like, and making money for some big corporation, and it's your stuff, you don't have to pretend and be fake. You're like, this is my life. Isn't this great? Look at, oh my God, do you want to talk about books? And like, so it kind of prepared me for that. And then I've done other things in the past couple of years. I tried to start like a Disney YouTube channel because I'm a huge Disney fan.
Oh, I love that.
When I was trying to learn nutrition, I started like a nutrition blog. That was like the worst failure ever. But different things that, like, I tried different mediums. I put myself out there. It was terrifying. I had failures. I learned SEO and all of these different things and social medias, that it all just kind of combined into when I was ready to write and publish this book. And it, like, I'm not religious, but I'm like, everything is happening for a reason right now. I don't know what is happening, but it's all working out this year.
Magic.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
Forest magic.
So I'm like, I'm a super introvert too, but
yeah,
just getting that practice of putting yourself out there is like, it just helps. But you do, like, after you talk to people for so long, you're like, I need a recharge now. Oh my God, I'm getting off social media for a couple of days.
Yes.
But just to try and be authentic and be yourself and be goofy and show your face is like, it's scary at first. And then once people respond positively to it, you're like, I can just be myself.
Yeah.
And it's working. I'm cool with that.
But I found that especially on TikTok, with those posts where I am more like authentic, or I do something that makes me feel a little stupid, or like, I must look ridiculous right now, but I do it anyway. Those are the ones I get like the nicest responses to. And I like make so many connections from those videos, or when I'm really nervous about the book I've put out because, there's this scene in it, which is really deep emotionally. And I'm really nervous to put that out there because I also identify with that, but somebody else responds and says that they did too. And it makes it worth it for sure. And it makes it so much easier to be authentic online. And when you meet people in person too, it makes it so much easier. It doesn't change me being an introvert at all. I still go home and recharge. I still have to go home and turn everything off, tell everyone go away.
Yes,
but
100%.
It does make like approaching people or putting things out there a whole lot easier once you've done it the first time, and you see that it's really not so scary out there. I mean, it's like with everything, books, everyone, like there's a book out there for everybody, and what we're really reading for is the emotions. And that's it. Things are not as scary out there as sometimes we feel like it might be. And I think the book community is super, super welcoming to that.
I used to think the Disney community was the nicest community. I'm like, how could they not be? Everybody's Disney. And then I met the Book Talk and Bookish community, and I'm like, who are these people?
Those people go to bat for you. They will go to bat. They are amazing.
I've never felt such a connection with such a large amount of people before. And just to like instantly, every time you have something to connect on immediately. And then and people talk about the Book Talk drama. I'm like, I don't see any of that. I don't know if the algorithm is just like, she's nice, keep the drama away from her.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't see a lot of that either.
I don't see it. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to go seeking it out because I'm trying to maintain positivity here. But it's the first time you do anything is always the hardest. The first TikTok video you make where you show your face or you speak whatever level people are at, that is the hardest part. And it always gets easier from there. So I feel like in my publishing and business journey, I've got so many things under my belt now. Like I reached out to beta readers and have some people. I know how to give feedback and get feedback. I did the ARC reader thing and I did the actual publishing, and I'm out there on the internet. I did my first craft fair.
I saw that. That was so cool.
Last weekend, because I do jewelry and bookmarks with my books too. So like I was so terrified for that. And I went and I'm like, this is fun. What was I afraid of? I came home, I signed up for like 6 more craft fairs.
Oh my gosh. But when I saw that TikTok, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh my gosh, there's always so many where I live. I should go set up a booth.
Yes. And I was really surprised because I'm like, people are not coming out here for books. So at least I have the jewelry and the bookmarks to come back onto. But I sold 14 paperback books in 5 hours. And I was like, that is really good. And people were really interested. A couple people were like, I love finding local authors. This is amazing. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to, every book you release, I'm like, okay, thank you. Make sure you like the book first. But
oh man, I've had so many nice interactions with people since I published. I was preparing myself for like all of the negative comments and people online being so mean about my book. And I really haven't had very much of that. I mean, there's always criticism about stuff, but I haven't had anyone that's like attacking, which is so nice.
That's good.
Especially on TikTok. Those people are really nice.
Oh my God, the TikTok people, I just love them. I've had one issue with a person that I knew personally who didn't like that I was making bookmarks because she makes bookmarks. And so she like, I don't want to get into drama, but she gathered a couple people, were reaching out to my readers and saying how horrible I am, posted negative reviews all over the place. And that's the only like negative thing that I've had. But I'm like, it wasn't even really because of my work. It was because you were upset with me.
Yeah.
Gosh,
that's something I like about books in general is like there's no competition between books.
Yeah.
It's for everybody. And the people that love this book can also like this one just as much. And they still buy both. There's no competition. It makes it like we're really just like coworkers.
Exactly. It's like
stuff.
It's collaboration and community and all of that good stuff.
Oh man.
People are like, well, you can't write fantasy romance because I write fantasy romance. I never hear that. I never hear that. It's like, if you like that one, maybe you'll like mine. If you like mine, you'll totally love this one.
Yeah.
Like everybody's just
to meet people in similar genres. Yeah.
Yes.
It's the best. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to be best friends forever.
Yes. 100%.
So
It's cool.
let's see. We are starting to dwindle a little bit on our time, but I did want to ask you because
So
this has been such a learning experience for me, sitting down with other writers. I've learned so much throughout the last couple of months of doing this. And so I've been asking, what has been like the biggest game changer for you? What was the biggest like moment of growth for you in the process? I know it's a toughie.
that is tough. I feel like we touched on it, like just actually doing it, because you can stay at home and write and get it all out and plot and build your world and everything, but it's all in yourself. But once you put it out there for other people, that really like it opens you up to potential criticism that you have to be strong about and not take it personally and be like, they really just want to help you and make it better. You're opening yourself up to putting your poor little baby on trial. And I literally think just having the courage to put it out there at all was the hardest part and the most important part, because I'm not good at taking criticism. I'm like one of those people that if you say anything negative, I'm going to break down, I'm going to cry.
Me too.
Never mind, I give up, just forget about it. But the way that beta readers go about it is so polite because they really do want to help. And just getting over that fear was so important, because in my history, I haven't put myself out there or my finished products out there because of the fear of failure and fear of judgment. And in publishing this thing that you've worked on for months and months and months, putting it out there, oh, it's so scary and it's so hard. But that has made me grow as a person so much. Just it's something that you have to do if you want to publish. You've got to get it out there.
That's true.
But that's the moment in the process that changed me completely, as like my mindset as a writer is like, I can't just do this alone. I need to have people help me and be open to that help and not take it personally.
I think that's such an important thing to mention, because we get, especially like writers, there's such this idea that we are lonely people and we just sit in rooms by ourselves and no one knows what we're ever working on. We're like, ooh, like spooky and whatnot. And then the book just appears. But it really is so important that you include more people in it, because if you don't, then the only person with eyes on what you're working on is yourself. So I've made some pretty atrocious mistakes in my drafts. It is so important to share the process with other people. Yeah. And I think that's amazing.
It's even more than just like, hey, there's a typo here and this plot hole doesn't make sense. It's like, I wrote one little sentence that people were like, you can't say that. That's not okay. I'm like, is that bad? Because I only have my own
your own experience,
gender female perspectives. And other people were like, nah, that's not okay. I'm like, I didn't know, I'm sorry. And they're like, no, it's okay. That's why we're doing this. So I changed it and they're like, it's fine now.
Better now. I mean,
it wasn't later, bad. Right? It was like, I called Abby, one of my characters, I called her a domestic warrior. And I'm like, that's cool. She's like a baking thing and a sword. And they're like, don't maybe do that. Not. I'm like, okay, I was not attached to that in any way. Whatever.
Better in that stage though than it appearing in an Amazon comment.
Yes, exactly.